Chapter 3, Part 2. Giving Technological Resurrection Credibility. Furthermore, one of cosmism's most important aspects is that it lends a level of credibility to the idea of technological resurrection. I know from personal experience that even today, if we bring it up in casual conversation, people start to pull straitjackets out of the closet while surreptitiously taking our measurements. And yet, if we tell them that Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Solovyev, and Tsiolkovsky all spent long hours discussing technological resurrection seriously, suddenly people look at the subject in a new light. It simply becomes another intellectual topic, like existentialism. In fact, of Fyodorov's ideas, Dostoevsky famously wrote, "Rarely have I read anything more logical." So, take it from me, if you ever bring this idea up to someone unfamiliar with it, lead with cosmism and Tolstoy. It will make it all go smoother. But why don't any of us know about cosmism? Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Solovyev, and Tsiolkovsky used to hang out with Fyodorov, a meeting of giant minds discussing these ideas seriously. Although Fyodorov and Tolstoy had a falling out over their differing views. And yet, this is almost never talked about. It's like if we found out that Jesus was drinking buddies with Genghis Khan, but somehow that never made it into the Bible. So, why is the topic of technological resurrection still absent? Why is technological resurrection one of the last scientific taboos? Well, there's actually a reason, a pretty good one. Fyodorov's missing key, a scientific rationale. Dr. Michio Kaku is one of the most famous futurists in the world today. He regularly goes on television shows, news shows, and documentaries and lays out his predictions for the future. He also writes books. And his predictions range from virtual reality to synthetic biology to even how economic systems will be impacted by upcoming technology. He is world-renowned, respected, and beloved. But he has a rule that he follows. When he makes predictions about technologies of the future, he follows two criteria. First, the known laws of physics must be obeyed. And second, there must already exist prototypes that demonstrate proof of principle. And he simply doesn't mention anything that doesn't meet these criteria. And pretty much all scientists and all people follow these two rules as well. And this was the fatal flaw in Fyodorov's vision of technological resurrection. It was simply too far-fetched, too far ahead of its time. So it was missing something, a key ingredient. And that was the scientific rationale for how we could possibly resurrect people who had been dead for hundreds of years. Even the slightest hint of a scientific concept or theory already on the books. The fact is, every work of science fiction or prediction must start with at least a nucleus of known science. This is simply how it is. Before radio waves were discovered, the idea of communicating to someone on the other side of the world through a box would have been considered magical or mystical, in the realm of wizards and deities. But after the discovery of radio waves, it was easy to imagine that one day the entire world would be linked by radio. Once the concept was understood and proven, all we had to do was take the concept and imagine more of it. And most of the other ideas in Fyodorov's cosmos philosophy were based on such kernels of known science. Space travel? Well, the world had already seen flying airships in the form of dirigibles. They just needed to go faster and farther. Immortality? Obviously, we just needed to find the right chemicals or treatments to slow or stop aging. But resurrecting dead people whose bodies had long since blown to dust? Man had yet to resurrect a germ, much less a man. Consciousness was not yet scientifically understood at all. And so without even the smallest kernel of known science to begin extrapolating from, Fyodorov's ideas would not take root. It was all as if Fyodorov was talking about the internet before the discovery of electricity. It simply didn't make sense. So, while cosmos philosophers embraced the spacefaring part of his vision and even went out and eventually began to do it, the religious and resurrection aspects were left on the cutting room floor. Nikolai's fusion of religious and scientific doctrine tried to please everyone, but ultimately appealed to no one. It was too scientific for the religious and too religious for the scientific. In fact, most of the philosophers and intellectuals termed cosmists are actually secular cosmists, like Constantine, though cosmists believed that man could do pretty much anything else through science. Still a radical idea for their time. This final thing, resurrecting people who had been dead for hundreds of years, was still in God's domain. But times have changed. Artificial superintelligence is being invented. Quantum physicists are teleporting particles around. And for the first time, scientific theories are being discussed by serious people that lay the basis for how Fyodorov's vision could actually be true after all. That's the end of the chapter. In the next video, we'll begin Chapter 4, The Road to a Scientific Rationale.